My siblings turn my birthday into a circus of cruelty every year. But last month, I flipped the script and left them speechless. Picture this. My brother Jake's 35th birthday bash, a glitzy rooftop party in Miami, packed with his flashy friends, and his fiancée, Lily, who had no clue about his twisted past. I walked in with a velvet gift box that made jaws drop, but what was inside? Let's just say it was a bomb that blew up his perfect life. Growing up, my birthday was never about cake or presents, it was about surviving. Jake and our sister Mia, both older, made it their mission to turn me into a punchline. As a kid, I thought it was just sibling teasing. At 8, they swapped my candles for sparklers that wouldn't die out, laughing as I puffed until I cried. By 12, it wasn't cute anymore. Mia once gifted me a box of glitter that exploded in my face at our family diner in Orlando, leaving me sparkling and humiliated while everyone roared. I'd fake a smile, but inside I was crumbling. It got darker as we got older. On my 16th, Jake posted my number on a shady forum, claiming I was selling free hugs. My phone buzzed for weeks with creepy messages from strangers. I'd lock my door at night, terrified. But the worst? My 21st. I was at a fancy restaurant surrounded by family, ready to cut my cake. The knife slid in and there it was, a massive wriggling centipede crawling out of the frosting. I screamed, dropping the plate. The room erupted in laughter. Mia was wiping tears. Jake was howling, and even my parents chuckled like it was a harmless prank. I ran to the bathroom shaking, feeling like bugs were crawling all over me. That night, staring in the mirror, I made a vow. One day, I'd make them feel what I felt. Fast forward 14 years. I'd built a quiet life in Tampa, working as a graphic designer, surrounding myself with friends who actually cared. Jake, meanwhile, was living large, a crypto bro with a penthouse, a Tesla, and Lily, a sweet nurse who thought he was Prince Charming. Mia was still his sidekick, running a boutique and egging him on. When the invite to Jake's 35th landed, I could have skipped it. But that vow from my 21st birthday burned in my chest. This was my shot. I spent months plotting. Every cruel prank, every tear I'd shed fueled my plan. I wasn't just going to embarrass Jake, I was going to unravel him. The party was at a swanky rooftop lounge, all fairy lights and champagne. I showed up late, clutching a sleek velvet box that screamed money. Heads turned. "Is that for Jake?" someone whispered. Jake's eyes lit up as I handed it over, his grin cocky. He thought he was untouchable. He opened the box and the crowd gasped. Inside was a gold-embossed card with a QR code and the words, "Your future awaits." Jake scanned it, and his phone lit up with a bank transfer notification, $50,000, deposited to his account. His jaw dropped. "No way," he stammered, showing Lily. She clapped, beaming. Then he pulled out a tiny key gleaming under the lights. "What's this?" he asked, voice shaky. I smiled. "Keep going." Next came a folder, labeled Legacy. Inside was a single photo, a grainy shot of Jake and Mia, laughing at my 21st birthday as I stood frozen, centipede crawling across the cake. His face paled. The crowd murmured, confused. Lily frowned, leaning closer. "What's that?" she asked. Jake tried to laugh it off. "Just an old pick, dumb joke." But I wasn't done. I leaned in, voice low but clear. "A joke? Like how? You made my life hell every birthday?" The air shifted. Lily's smile faded. Mia, sipping a martini, choked. I kept my eyes on Jake. "Tell them about the centipede, or the glitter bomb, or the time you catfished me online for laughs." His mouth opened, but nothing came out. For the first time, he wasn't the one laughing. Lily's eyes narrowed. "Jake, what's he talking about?" she asked, voice sharp. He fumbled. "It was just kid stuff." But the photo in his hand told a different story. I turned to the crowd, calm but loud enough for everyone to hear. Every year they humiliated me, made me feel worthless, but tonight's about balance. Jake's face twisted. "You're pathetic," he spat. "Holding a grudge for a decade?" I didn't flinch. I just pointed to the key in his hand. "That key? It's for a safe deposit box. What's inside might change your mind about pathetic." Lily grabbed the photo, her expression darkening. "You did this," she whispered. Jake's confidence cracked. He turned to me, voice low. "What's in the box?" I smiled, slow and deliberate. "You'll find out. But first, explain to Lily why you thought torturing me was funny?" The rooftop went quiet, all eyes on Jake. For the first time, he looked small. And I felt like I was finally winning. The rooftop was dead silent, the Miami skyline glittering behind us as Jake clutched that tiny key like it was his lifeline. His face was a mix of fury and fear, and for once, I was the one in control. Lily stared at the photo of my 21st birthday, her eyes flicking between the centipede crawling across the cake and Jake's smug grin in the background. "You thought this was funny?" she asked, her voice low but slicing like a blade. Jake's mouth twitched, searching for an excuse, but I wasn't about to let him squirm out of this. "Tell her," I said, my voice steady, carrying over the hushed crowd. "Tell everyone how you and Mia made my birthdays a living hell." Jake's eyes darted to Mia, who was suddenly very interested in her martini glass, her smirk gone. The crowd, Jake's crypto buddies, his co-workers, our cousins, leaned in, sensing blood in the water. Lily crossed her arms, waiting. Jake let out a forced laugh, the kind that screams panic. "It was just pranks, okay? Sibling stuff. He's blowing it way out of proportion." "Pranks?" I stepped closer, my voice calm but razor sharp. "Was the prank when you posted my number online, Jake? When I got messages from creeps for months? Or when Mia convinced our aunt I didn't exist at my 13th birthday, and I spent the night wondering if I was invisible?" I turned to Lily. "Ask him about the centipede. Ask why he planned it, why he laughed while I gagged in front of everyone." Lily's face hardened. She held up the photo, her hands trembling slightly. "This isn't a prank, Jake. This is cruel." Jake's jaw clenched, his cool guy mask slipping. "It was years ago," he snapped. "We were kids." I tilted, my head unfazed. "You were 24 when you put that bug in my cake, not exactly a kid." A murmur rippled through the crowd. One of Jake's friends, a guy in a flashy suit, shifted uncomfortably, whispering to the person next to him. Mia finally piped up, her voice dripping with fake nonchalance. "Okay, maybe it went too far, but come on, it's not like we hurt him." She flashed a grin like she could charm her way out. I turned to her, my smile cold. "Not hurt? You made me dread my own birthday, Mia. You made me feel like I didn't matter. But tonight you're both gonna learn what that feels like." Mia's grin faltered, her eyes narrowing. She knew I wasn't bluffing. Lily's voice cut through, sharp and quiet. "Jake, why didn't you ever tell me about this?" Jake turned to her, his hands raised like he could physically push the question away. "Because it's nothing. He's twisting it to make me look bad." But Lily wasn't buying it. She took a step back, her expression shifting from hurt to something colder, like she was seeing him for the first time. "You're not denying it," she said softly. Jake froze, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. I reached into my jacket and pulled out a small, sleek envelope, holding it up so everyone could see. "This," I said, "explains the key, and the $50,000. Jake's eyes locked on the envelope, his breathing shallow. The crowd was hooked, phones subtly raised, recording every second. I handed the envelope to Lily, not Jake. "You should read it first," I told her. She hesitated, then took it, her fingers brushing the wax seal. Jake lunged forward. "Don't," he said, voice tight. "It's just his stupid game." Lily ignored him, breaking the seal. Her eyes scanned the single sheet inside, and her face went pale. She looked up at me, then at Jake, her voice barely a whisper. "Is this true?" Jake's face drained of color. "What? What's it say?" he demanded, reaching for the paper. Lily pulled it back, her eyes blazing. "It says the $50,000 is real, but it's not for you, it's for a trust fund. For his future kids, to make sure they never grow up with siblings like you." The crowd gasped. Jake's face twisted, a mix of shock and rage. "You're giving away my money?" he spat. I laughed, short and sharp. "It's not yours, Jake. It's mine. From my own savings, my own work. You thought I'd just hand you cash after everything you did." Lily's eyes softened as she looked at me, then hardened again as she turned to Jake. "You assumed it was for you," she said. "You didn't even question it. That's who you are." Mia tried to jump in, her voice high and desperate. "Okay, this is getting ridiculous. It's just a misunderstanding." But no one was listening to her. The crowd was buzzing, whispers turning into open chatter. Jake's friends looked awkward, some slipping away toward the bar. Our cousin Tara, who'd always stayed neutral, shook her head, muttering, "That's messed up, Jake." For the first time, I saw cracks in his perfect world, and it felt good. I pointed to the key in Jake's hand. "That safe deposit box, it's got something else, something that'll make tonight stick with you forever." Jake's hand tightened around the key, his knuckles white. "What is it?" he growled. I leaned in, my voice low, just for him. "You'll have to open it to find out, but I promise, it's worse than a centipede." His eyes widened, a flicker of real fear crossing his face. For the first time, he wasn't the one laughing. Lily folded the letter, her movement slow, deliberate. I need to talk to you, she told Jake, her voice like ice. She didn't wait for a response, turning and walking toward the edge of the rooftop where the city lights shimmered below. Jake hesitated, then followed, his steps heavy, like he was marching to his own execution. The crowd watched them go, the tension so thick you could choke on it. Mia grabbed my arm, her nails digging in. "What the hell are you doing?" she hissed. "You're ruining everything." I pulled my arm free, meeting her glare. "No, Mia, you and Jake did that years ago. I'm just settling the score." She opened her mouth, then closed it, her usual confidence gone. For once, she had no comeback. As Jake and Lily argued in hushed tones by the railing, I sipped my drink, letting the moment sink in. This wasn't just revenge, it was justice. But the key? That was the real twist, the one I hadn't revealed yet. What was in that safe deposit box wasn't just a prank. It was a secret from Jake's past, one I'd uncovered while planning this night. Something that would make the $50,000 trust fund look like pocket change. And when he opened it, his life would never be the same. The Miami rooftop buzzed with whispers as Jake and Lily argued by the railing, their silhouettes sharp against the city's neon glow. Jake's hands flew in frantic gestures, his voice low but desperate, while Lily stood rigid, arms crossed, her face unreadable. The crowd pretended to sip their drinks, but every eye was on them, or on me, standing calm with a drink in hand, the velvet box now an empty symbol of Jake's unraveling. That key in his pocket? It was about to unlock, a truth that would burn his world to ash. Mia was still fuming, pacing near the bar, shooting me glares like I'd personally set her boutique on fire. "You're loving this, aren't you?" she spat, loud enough for nearby guests to turn. I shrugged, my voice cool. "Not as much as you loved watching me choke on that centipede." Her face flushed, and for a split second, I saw guilt flicker in her eyes before she masked it with a scoff. "Whatever. You're just jealous of Jake's life." I laughed, short and cold. Jealous? Of a guy who needs to humiliate his little brother to feel big? Nah, I'm good. The crowd was eating. Dude up. Jake's crypto bros, usually loud and obnoxious, were oddly quiet, exchanging glances like they were rethinking their hero worship. Our cousin Tara leaned over, her voice low. "I never knew it was that bad," she said, eyes wide. "Why didn't you say anything?" I met her gaze. "Would you have believed me, or would you have laughed like Mom and Dad did?" She looked away, ashamed, and I knew I'd hit a nerve. For years, my family had let Jake and Mia's cruelty slide. Tonight, that ended. Lily's voice suddenly cut through the hum, sharp and clear. "You're not even sorry, are you?" She was facing Jake now, her back to the crowd, but her words carried. Jake's shoulders slumped, his charm crumbling. "Lily, come on, it was a dumb prank. I was young." She shook her head, stepping back. "Young? You were a grown man, and you never told me. What else are you hiding?" The question hung like a guillotine, and Jake's face went white. He glanced at me, eyes narrowing like he knew I was behind this shift. I took a slow sip of my drink, letting him stew. The letter about the $50,000 trust fund had been the first blow, exposing his greed. The photo of my 21st birthday was the second, cracking his perfect image. But the key? That was the knockout punch, and he didn't even know it yet. I'd spent months digging, hiring a private investigator to uncover Jake's dirty secrets. What I found wasn't just a prank. It was a betrayal so deep it would shatter everything he'd built. Lily turned, her eyes finding mine across the rooftop. She walked over, the crowd parting like she was royalty. "What's in the safe deposit box?" she asked, her voice steady but laced with dread. Jake trailed behind, his face a mix of panic and rage. "Yeah, what's your game?" he demanded, voice shaking. I set my glass down, my smile slow and deliberate. "It's not a game, Jake. It's a reckoning. That key opens a box at first. Coastal Bank. Tomorrow you can find out what's inside, but fair warning, it's gonna hurt." The crowd leaned in, phones still recording, the air electric with anticipation. Mia shoved her way forward, her voice shrill. "What is this? Some soap opera? Just tell us." I ignored her, keeping my eyes on Jake. "You always said your pranks were just jokes, right? Well, this is my joke. Except it's not funny. It's true." Jake's jaw tightened, his hand slipping into his pocket, gripping the key like it might burn him. "You're bluffing," he said, but his voice cracked. Lily's eyes searched mine, and I saw something new. Trust. She didn't know me well, but she knew Jake's lies were piling up. "Why tomorrow?" she asked. I leaned in, voice low, so only she and Jake could hear. "Because I want him to spend tonight wondering, just like I spent every birthday wondering what you and Mia would do to me next." Jake's face twisted, a mix of guilt and fury. "You're sick," he muttered. I smirked. "Says the guy who put a bug in my cake." A murmur rippled through the crowd, some shocked, others amused. One of Jake's friends, a guy with a man bun and a Rolex, let out a low whistle. "Dude, a centipede? That's cold." Jake shot him a glare, but the guy just shrugged like he was done defending him. Lily's expression hardened. "I'm going with you tomorrow," she told Jake, her tone final. "I want to see what's in that box." Jake's eyes widened. "Lily, you don't need—" She cut him off. "I'm going." Mia laughed, nervous and sharp. "This is ridiculous. It's probably empty, just some dumb stunt to make Jake look bad." I turned to her, my voice calm but cutting. "If it's empty, Mia, why's Jake sweating?" She froze, her eyes flicking to Jake, who was indeed glistening under the fairy lights, his confidence gone. The crowd was fully invested now, some whispering theories about what the box held. Money, evidence, a trap. They weren't wrong to wonder. Lily stepped closer to me, her voice quiet. "Why are you doing this?" I met her gaze, honest for the first time all night. "Because for years they made me feel like nothing. Tonight I'm taking that power back, and whatever's in that box, it's not just for me. It's for everyone Jake's ever hurt." Her lips parted, but no words came. She nodded like she finally understood. Jake grabbed Lily's arm, his voice low and urgent. "Let's go, we don't need to play his game." But Lily pulled free, her eyes cold. "I'm not going anywhere with you right now." The words hit like a slap, and Jake flinched. For the first time I saw real fear in his eyes, not just of me, but of losing her. He turned to me, voice barely above a whisper. "What's in the box?" I leaned in, my smile deadly. "Something you can't laugh off." As Lily walked away, heading for the elevator, Jake stood frozen, the key burning a hole in his pocket. The crowd watched, some filming, others whispering. Mia tried to salvage the mood, raising her glass. "Okay, show's over, let's party." But no one moved. The night was broken, and Jake knew it. Tomorrow, when he opened that box, he'd find a truth that would make tonight's humiliation look like a warm-up, and I'd be there watching his empire crumble. The Miami night air was thick with tension as Lily disappeared into the elevator, leaving Jake alone on the rooftop, the key to the safe deposit box clutched in his trembling hand. His face was a storm of emotions, rage, fear, and something new, vulnerability. For the first time, the guy who'd spent years orchestrating my misery looked like he was the one about to break. The crowd, still buzzing from the drama, watched him like hawks, their phones capturing every twitch of his jaw. I stood by the bar, savoring the moment, knowing the real explosion was coming tomorrow. Jake's eyes locked on me, burning with a mix of betrayal and desperation. "You think you've won?" he hissed, storming over, his voice low but shaking. "You think this little stunt changes anything?" I met his gaze, unflinching, my voice calm as ice. "It's not about winning, Jake. It's about you finally feeling what I felt. Small, exposed, helpless." His nostrils flared, but he didn't have a comeback. For once, the king of quick retorts was speechless. Mia, never one to stay quiet, shoved her way between us, her eyes wild. "You're pathetic," she spat, pointing a manicured finger at me. "Dragging up old crap. To ruin Jake's night, get a life." I turned to her, my smile sharp. "A life? Like the one you and Jake tried to destroy every year? Tell me, Mia, did you ever feel bad? Even once?" Her mouth opened, then snapped shut, her confidence cracking. The crowd leaned in, sensing another bombshell. Mia's eyes darted to Jake, but he was too busy glaring at me to bail her out. One of Jake's crypto buddies, a guy with a gold chain and a fake tan, tried to lighten the mood. "Yo, let's chill, yeah? It's a party." But his voice fell flat and no one joined in. The vibe was dead and Jake's perfect 35th birthday was a train wreck. Our cousin Tara stepped forward, her voice soft but firm. "Jake, Mia, you owe him an apology. This is messed up." Jake's head snapped toward her, shocked, like he couldn't believe anyone was taking my side. Mia scoffed, but it was weak, her usual bravado fading under the crowd's judgmental stares. Jake's hand tightened around the key, his knuckles white. "What's in the box?" he demanded again, his voice barely above a whisper. I leaned in, just close enough for him to feel the weight of my words. "Something you've been running from for years. Something that'll make that centipede look like a love letter." His eyes widened, a flicker of recognition crossing his face like he was starting to piece it together. But he didn't know the half of it. The truth was, I'd found something during my months of digging that went beyond pranks. Jake hadn't just humiliated me. He'd betrayed our family in a way I never expected. The private investigator I hired uncovered a paper trail leading to a secret Jake had buried deep, one that involved our late grandfather's estate. When Grandpa died, he left a trust fund meant for all three of us, me, Jake, and Mia. But Jake, with his slick finance skills, had siphoned off a chunk of it years ago, funneling it into his crypto ventures. He thought no one would notice. The safe deposit box held proof: bank records, emails, and a signed confession from one of Jake's old business partners who'd turned on him. It wasn't just about the money. It was about the betrayal. Grandpa had been the only one who ever stood up for me, and Jake had stolen from him, from us. Tomorrow, when Jake opened that box in front of Lily and me, he'd face the consequences of his greed. And Lily? She'd see the man she almost married for who he really was. Back on the rooftop, Jake's face was a mask of barely contained panic. He turned to the crowd, trying to regain control. "This is all a lie," he said, his voice loud but unsteady. "He's just jealous, always has been." A few of his friends nodded, but most looked skeptical, their loyalty wavering. Tara shook her head, her voice cutting through. "Jake, stop. You're making it worse." Mia grabbed his arm, whispering, "Let's go. This is a circus." But Jake yanked free, his eyes locked on me. "I'm not running," he growled. I raised my glass, my voice calm but carrying. "You don't have to run, Jake. The truth's waiting for you at First Coastal Bank. 9 a.m. sharp. Bring Lily. She deserves to know who you are." The crowd murmured, some whispering about the bank, others speculating about the box. Jake's face twisted, and for a second I thought he might lunge at me. But he didn't. Instead, he turned and stormed toward the elevator, shoving past guests, the key still in his hand. Mia hesitated, then followed, her heels clicking furiously. The party limped on, but the energy was gone. Guests milled around, some leaving, others gossiping about what they'd just witnessed. Tara stayed, her eyes soft with regret. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "I should have seen it sooner." I nodded but didn't say much. The apology was nice, but it was years too late. My phone buzzed, a text from Lily. "Meet me at the bank tomorrow. I need answers." I smiled, slipping the phone back in my pocket. She was already pulling away from Jake, and he didn't even know how bad it was about to get. As I left the rooftop, the city lights sprawling below, I felt lighter than I had in years. Jake had spent my childhood tearing me down, but tonight I'd turned the tables. The safe deposit box wasn't just revenge. It was justice for every birthday he'd ruined, every tear I'd shed, every time I'd felt like I didn't belong. Tomorrow, when he saw those documents, he'd lose more than his pride. He'd lose Lily, his reputation, and maybe even his freedom if the lawyers got involved. I walked into the night, the sound of the rooftop fading behind me. Jake was probably tossing and turning, haunted by that key, wondering what I had on him. Good. Let him sweat. For the first time in my life, I was the one calling the shots, and it felt like fire in my veins. Tomorrow, the final piece of my plan would snap into place, and Jake's perfect life would crumble like the cake he'd sabotaged all those years ago. The morning sun burned through the Miami haze as I pulled up to First Coastal Bank, my heart pounding with a mix of anticipation and cold resolve. Today was the day Jake would face the truth in that safe deposit box, and I was ready to watch his world implode. Lily's text last night had been clear. She'd be there and she wanted answers. Jake, though, he was a wild card, probably sleepless, haunted by that key and the shadow of what I'd uncovered. This wasn't just about my ruined birthdays anymore. It was about exposing the real Jake, the one who'd betrayed us all. Inside the bank, the air was crisp, the marble floors gleaming under fluorescent lights. I waited by the counter, my hand steady despite the adrenaline. Lily arrived first, her face pale but determined. Her nurse's scrubs swapped for a sharp blazer that screamed she meant business. "You're sure about this?" she asked, her voice low, eyes searching mine. I nodded. "I've never been more sure. You'll see why." She exhaled, glancing at the door like she was bracing for a storm. Jake walked in minutes later, his usual swagger gone. His eyes were bloodshot, his jaw tight, the key glinting in his hand. Mia trailed behind, her face a mix of defiance and dread, like she knew this was bad but couldn't look away. Jake's gaze locked on me, his voice a low growl. "Let's get this over with. Whatever's in that box, it's not gonna change anything." I smiled, slow and sharp. "Keep telling yourself that, Jake." Lily's eyes flicked between us, her silence louder than words. The bank manager, a wiry man, with a clipboard, led us to the vault. The room was sterile, all steel and silence, the safe deposit boxes lined up like soldiers. Jake's hand shook as he inserted the key, the lock clicking with a finality that made Mia flinch. He pulled out a slim metal box, setting it on the table with a thud. Lily crossed her arms, her voice steady. "Open it." Jake hesitated, his eyes darting to me, then to the box like it might bite. "Go on," I said, my tone calm but laced with venom. "You've waited all night." He lifted the lid and the room went still. Inside was a manila folder, thick, with documents and a USB drive labeled Truth. Jake's face drained of color as he opened the folder, his hands trembling. Bank statements, emails, and a notarized letter stared back at him, proof he'd siphoned $200,000 from our grandfathers. Trust fund money meant for me, Mia, and our future. The letter was from his old business partner, detailing how Jake had forged signatures and rerouted funds to his crypto schemes, thinking no one would dig deep enough to find out. Lily grabbed the letter, her eyes scanning the words, her breath catching. "You stole from your own family?" she whispered, her voice breaking. Jake's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Mia snatched a bank statement, her eyes wide. "Jake, what the hell is this?" she demanded, her voice shrill. He shook his head, desperate. "It's not what it looks like. I was going to pay it back." But the documents didn't lie, and neither did the USB drive which held recorded calls of Jake bragging about outsmarting the family. I leaned against the wall, watching the chaos unfold. "You thought you were untouchable," I said, my voice steady, cutting through the panic. "You humiliated me for years, Jake, but this? Stealing from Grandpa, the one person who believed in us? That's low, even for you." Lily's eyes filled with tears, not from sadness but from rage. "You lied to me," she said, her voice shaking. "You said you built your life from nothing, but you stole it." Jake's knees buckled and he gripped the table, his voice hoarse. "I didn't mean for it to go this far. I needed a start." Mia threw the paper down, her face red. "You dragged me into this, Jake. You said it was all legit." She turned to me, her voice cracking. "Did you know about this?" I nodded, my smile gone. "I found out 6 months ago. Hired a PI, that's why we're here." Mia's jaw dropped, and for the first time she looked genuinely scared. Lily slammed the folder shut, her eyes blazing. "I'm done," she said, her voice like steel. "You're not the man I thought you were." Jake reached for her, desperate. "Lily, please, I can explain." She stepped back, shaking her head. "Don't, I'm calling off the engagement." The words hit like a grenade and Jake's face crumpled, his empire of lies collapsing. Mia gasped, her hands covering her mouth, but she didn't argue. She knew Lily meant it. The bank manager, who'd been hovering awkwardly, cleared his throat. "Do you need me to call anyone?" I shook my head, my eyes on Jake. "No, he's got enough to deal with." I turned to Lily. "You okay?" She nodded, her jaw tight. "I will be. Thank you for showing me the truth." I didn't smile, just nodded back. This wasn't about gloating, it was about justice. Jake sank into a chair, staring at the documents like they were his death sentence. "What now?" he muttered, his voice hollow. I crossed my arms, my voice cold. "Now? You face the consequences. The trust fund's lawyers are already looking at this, and Grandpa's will, it had a clause. If anyone tampered with it, they're cut out. Completely." Jake's head snapped up, his eyes wide with horror. "You're lying." I shook my head. "Check the fine print." Mia's voice was barely a whisper. "What about me?" I turned to her, my gaze unflinching. "You're not innocent, Mia. You knew he was shady even if you didn't know the details. You laughed while he ruined my life. So yeah, you're in this too." She flinched, tears welling. But I didn't feel sorry. They'd both made their choices. Lily picked up the folder, her voice firm. "I'm taking these to a lawyer. This isn't just about you anymore, Jake." She looked at me, her eyes fierce. "I'll make sure this gets handled." I nodded, a weight lifting off my chest. For years I'd carried their cruelty. Now they'd carry the fallout. As we left the vault, Jake still sat there broken, the key useless in his hand. Tomorrow the lawyers would come for him, but today, I'd won. The bank vault's steel walls seemed to close in as Jake sat, broken, staring at the documents that had just obliterated his life. The proof of his $200,000 theft from our grandfather's trust fund lay scattered across the table, each paper a nail in the coffin of his carefully crafted image. Lily clutched the folder, her face a mix of betrayal and resolve, while Mia stood frozen, her usual bravado replaced by raw panic. I leaned against the vault door, my heart steady, the weight of years of pain finally lifting. This wasn't just revenge. It was a reckoning, and the final act was about to unfold. Lily broke the silence, her voice sharp as she turned to Jake. "How could you do this to your own family, to me?" Jake's head hung low, his voice barely audible. I didn't think anyone would find out. The admission was a gut punch, and Lily's eyes flashed with disgust. You didn't think, she repeated, her voice rising. You stole, you lied, and you thought you could just, what, keep playing the hero? She shook her head, clutching the folder tighter. I'm done. Mia, desperate to claw her way out, grabbed Jake's arm. Say something, Jake. Tell them it's a mistake. But Jake just stared at the table, his hands trembling. Mia turned to me, her voice shrill. You planned this to destroy us, didn't you? You're sick. I met her gaze, unflinching. Sick? You and Jake made my childhood a nightmare. You laughed while I suffered. This is just the truth. Catching up. Mia's eyes welled with tears, but I felt no pity. She'd been complicit, cheering Jake on, and now she'd face the fallout too. Lily stepped toward the vault door, her voice firm. I'm taking these to a lawyer today. This isn't just about the money. It's about what you did to your family. She looked at me, her eyes fierce but grateful. You didn't have to do this, but I'm glad you did. I needed to know who he really is. I nodded, my voice quiet. So did I. She gave me a small, pained smile, then walked out, the folder under her arm, her heels echoing in the sterile hall. Jake didn't move, didn't even look up, like he knew chasing her was pointless. The bank manager, still hovering awkwardly, glanced at his watch. I'll need you to wrap this up, he said, his voice cautious. I pushed off the wall, my eyes on Jake. We're done here, for now. Jake's head snapped up, his voice hoarse. What's that supposed to mean? I smiled, cold and deliberate. It means the lawyers are just getting started. Grandpa's will had a clause. Tamper with the trust, and you're out. No inheritance, no second chances. Jake's face went gray, his breath shallow. You can't. That's not real. I pulled a folded paper from my jacket, a copy of the will's key page, and slid it across the table. Read it. Clause B. You're finished. Jake grabbed the paper, his eyes scanning frantically, and I saw the moment it hit. The realization that he'd lost everything. Not just Lily, not just his reputation, but the millions he'd been counting on from Grandpa's estate. Mia snatched the paper from him, her voice shaking. This can't be legal. We'll fight it. I shrugged. Good luck. The trust's lawyers are already on it, and they don't lose. Mia's tears spilled over, her voice breaking. You're ruining our lives. I stepped closer, my voice low but cutting. You ruined mine first. Every birthday, every prank, every time you made me feel like I didn't belong. You built this. Both of you. Mia flinched, her defiance crumbling. For the first time, she looked at me not with anger, but with something like regret. Jake? Though was a ghost, his eyes fixed on the documents, his empire of lies reduced to rubble. I turned to leave, but Jake's voice stopped me, barely a whisper. Why didn't you just confront me? Why this spectacle? I looked back, my gaze steady. Because you wouldn't have listened. You'd have laughed like always. This way everyone sees you for what you are and you can't run from it. His jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. He knew I was right. The crowd at the party, Lily, even Mia, they'd all seen the real Jake, and he couldn't spin his way out. As I walked out of the bank, the Miami sun hit me like a wave, bright and unforgiving. My phone buzzed, a message from Tara, our cousin. Just heard what happened. I'm so sorry, let me know how I can help. I didn't reply, but it felt good to know someone in the family was finally on my side. I slipped the phone into my pocket and kept walking, the city alive around me, a stark contrast to the wreckage I'd left in that vault. Jake and Mia would face more than just family drama. The trust fund's lawyers were ruthless, and with the evidence I'd provided, Jake could be looking at criminal charges, fraud, forgery, maybe worse. Mia might dodge the worst of it, but her boutique, funded partly by Jake's shady deals, was already under scrutiny. Their perfect lives were unraveling, thread by thread, just like I'd planned. But the real victory wasn't the money or the legal hammer. It was the freedom. For years, I'd carried the weight of their cruelty, the shame of being the family joke. Now I'd taken that power back. I'd shown them, and myself, that I wasn't the scared kid they tormented. I was stronger, smarter, and done letting their shadows define me. That night, I sat in my Tampa apartment, a glass of whiskey in hand, staring at the stars through my window. My phone buzzed again, Lily this time. Lawyers moving fast, thank you, I owe you. I smiled, typing back, you owe yourself. You chose the truth. I set the phone down, the silence of my apartment wrapping around me like a blanket. For the first time in years, I looked forward to my next birthday, not as a battlefield but as a celebration. Jake and Mia had lost their grip on me, and I was finally free. That's the end of today's story. Did things turn out the way you thought, or were there some surprises along the way? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think. If you enjoyed this journey, don't forget to hit the like button. And if you haven't joined the community yet, now's the perfect time. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you're always the first to catch new stories. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next adventure.